Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, Lore and Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So I've spent the past week playing Sly Cooper and the Thievius Racconus, a classic favorite game of mine from the PS2 era. This is the first time I've played the game since 2019 or so, when I last 100%ed it. So this is kind of a return to this old favorite. And I suppose, coming back to this after such a long period of time, I was wondering how well I was going to handle it, what I was going to think of it, what I felt about it. Having played this again, for surely the several dozenth time, this is probably the PS2 equivalent for Congo's Caper for me. A game that I personally really, really love in spite of all of its flaws. And this game does have flaws. It's way too short. There's not a ton of content. You kind of wish there was better platforming, better level design, more interesting mechanics, better stealth, more usage of the idea. But at the end of the day, much like Congo's Caper, which has a lot of similar problems, the game really does do a lot with its creative idea, much more so than I think its contemporaries on PlayStation, stuff like Jack and Ratchet and Clank. I feel like Sly Cooper really, really utilizes. Oops. Unlike a lot of its contemporaries, Sly really utilizes its concept to the fullest. You're not just running through a bunch of generic platforming levels. You are going up against other criminal masterminds. You are going into their lairs, that all of which are visually distinct, have their own unique locations, take place all over the world, and all the characters have unique, interesting, sometimes sympathetic backstories. And it's that characteristic that really makes Sly, I think, stick out from the pack, in its regard, because this was very appealing to me as a kid. The idea of playing through a game where you're a master thief going after other criminals. It was really charming, really cool. Sly Cooper is an amazing protagonist. The character is nimble, agile, can pull all these crazy stunts. You can totally buy this guy being a master thief, even if when the general design just goes right down to it. You're basically just going through the generic platforming levels, right? He has a really cool rival in Carmelita Fox. Well, love interest in Carmelita Fox, who I actually really like. Who's really charming. It's really charming to see their back and forth, their dynamic. It's a lot of fun. Probably, honestly, one of my favorite relationships in gaming. They actually solidify their relationship as the games go on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But in this first game, they're kind of establishing their Lupin and Zenigata kind of relationship with Carmelita going after him all the time, and him flirting with her every time they meet. He's charming and suave as hell. I love that about him. Sly is just so much fun to watch. Unfortunately, that doesn't extend to his supporting cast, unfortunately. Bentley and Murray are just kind of there in this specific game. I think Bentley does a lot to contribute to the game. He's the one who gives you tutorials and explains what's going on and gives you a general layout and has a lot of exposition moments and even helps you out during the end. But I just don't think he's a very interesting character. Same with Murray. He's just kind of there. I'm not even sure what Murray even does in this game before Drive the Van. It's just the side characters weirdly just aren't very likable. I just don't really care about them at all. Never really liked them that much. And going into Sly 2, where I know they have a much more prominent role, I feel that's always been my issue with these games, is that what I would want is more Sly doing his thing with new moves, more focus on stealth and like just making grander and more incredible boss encounters or like opposition. And like you kind of get that in Sly 2, but you also get like these other playable characters who don't really add a whole lot to the experience. From what I remember, obviously, like I'm just kind of talking out my ass here, but like basically what I'm saying is that like Thievius Raccoonus, the first entry in the series, does not do a very good job of selling you on like the idea that these three are like inseparable friends. Like I don't think the game really needed them. I would have preferred it if like Sly was like a solo action hero. I think that would have made more sense considering the game is all about him. I just um I just personally don't really enjoy them that much. And I'm curious if like that my feelings towards that are going to change as the games go on because like Sly 2 does a lot to make the other characters feel more interesting and have more going on, especially like Bentley as I recall. But again, this is just kind of an issue. So yeah, the general design. The platforming stages they are passable. All right, there's nothing spectacular about the platforming in this game. Like Sly is just like, climbing ropes, jumping on platforms, making his way through the levels. It's very basic stuff, but like much like Congo's Caper, it's fun. It's so well put together in its like visual style and like the general idea, the general theming that like because the character is so interesting and so memorable, you barely even notice that like the platforming itself is kind of basic and kind of simplistic. This is probably a game that a lot of people this is probably a lot of kids' first platforming game, right? People who, didn't have a GameCube growing up were stuck with Sly Cooper. And although it's like a lesser experience to, classic Nintendo games like Super Mario 64 or Donkey Kong Country, it's still like a passable enough platforming game where I'm sure a lot of people got into this and really, really enjoyed it. Like it's nothing spectacular, but there's no real terrible pure platforming levels in this. Like they're all unique. They all have like cool little gimmicks. They all have like something interesting going on. Like nothing ever feels samey. Like the game like keeps constantly throwing new things at you and so you keep playing it. It's very, very enjoyable, even on like repeat playthroughs, especially on repeat playthroughs. This game really does have that like classic Super Nintendo feel to it where you can like pop it in any time and go through the entire thing and have like a great time. Is it like as good as those games? No, but at the same time, like it is a lot of fun for what it is, and that's a big reason why I keep coming back. On the other hand, the pure platforming levels are great. I love them a lot, but like there is a big major problem with this game that like I think I'm really starting to turn on as I get older is that like the ridiculous nature of some of these mini games. Now, in subsequent Sly games, they do a way better job, like, giving you reasons for doing what you're doing. Like, you have to, like, set up for a heist and stuff like that. And sometimes that involves doing some weird oddball things to, like, the environment or, like, gathering some kind of material or, like, putting together, like, a disguise or something like that. Like, Sly 2 did a way better job than this game did in handling its level, some of the reasons you're going on these adventures. Like for example, there's a time where you have to like go into a chicken coop and beat the shit out of 50 chickens, so a ghost will give you a key. Yeah, Bentley made a deal with this ghost that if you kill 50 chickens, he'll just give you a key. He contacted him through like his spectral scanner, whatever that is. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And there are a handful of areas like that. Like, you have like, races, where Murray has to like race a bunch of like of enemy gang members for the key. Like they're giving away an important treasure key for their operation in a race, which doesn't make any sense. You have like turret sections where you have to like protect Murray as he goes up like the hill. Goes up a hill. Like apparently he's not capable of fighting guards himself in this game. Like you have to like there are like turret sections which are like generic and basic as hell. Like it has that like feeling of like the developers like not having enough ideas for like pure platforming sections, so they threw those in there to like pad out the game just a bit longer. And this game really is not very long at all. Like I would say it's about like 2.5 hours long, all things considered. really, really simple and straightforward. But these mini games like pad it out, and a lot of them, I would say like all of them, honestly, are really not that fun. Like they're a change of pace from what you usually get, but I gladly would have traded all of them, I would say, for like one more like pure platforming level. Like Clockwork Slayer was a lot of fun, like when you're actually playing as Sly, but like going up through it, like getting to that point, like you have a turret section, you have like uh, a handful of like platforming sections. You have like a turret section, I believe. What does it come after that? Yeah, you have a driving section. You have a small platforming section. You have another turret section. Then you have another platforming section, and then you have the final boss, which is like a rail shooter in the vein of like Panzer Dragoon or Star Fox or something. And the final fight is good in this game. Like I would say most of the boss fights are actually fairly solid, other than like the fourth one, which is just Panda King, which is just pure garbage. Like the bosses are like well designed, have like cool, interesting voices. Other than the Panda King, who is complete garbage, they have interesting, sympathetic, interesting backstories for the most part, and they're memorable too. Like the designs just really do stick out to you as being like fun, innovative, and kind of set the standard for what's to come. I think Sly 2 really like one ups these guys when it comes to like their the operation and how like what their crimes actually are and how that plays in the plot and like how you navigate their hideouts and stuff like that. Like Sly 2 does a lot more with the idea of like you as a master thief going after these criminals. You have to take advantage of their operations and stuff like that. Here they're just kind of there. They're just kind of like a setting. And like they have like a boss fight, based on their unique properties and stuff like that. And it's, you kind of wish they did a little bit more with these guys because they just kind of exist. But at the same time, you do appreciate what you get out of these guys. Like I found myself getting really amused by like some of Mugshot's lines, like, I feel transgressed and violated. Oh, I can't impersonate his voice. Uh, I feel I can't do the voice. I feel transgressed and violated. It just comes out of nowhere, and you just can't help but laugh at it. The voice acting, for 2002 standards, for a platforming game like this for kids, like it's not bad. I liked most of the voices in this. Bentley is fine. Sly is the best he's ever been in this one. I much prefer his like quiet, suave tone in this compared to the sequels. This is the best Sly has ever sounded. He's cool as all out. Carmelita Fox, she's supposed to be a Latina. The actress in this really does a good job, like selling the bit of playing the hot-blooded Latina chick, and I love that. She's so much fun to watch. The villains, generally speaking, have great voices, especially Clockwork, the final boss. Like I found him like he has only a handful of lines, but like even as a kid, you know, it really stuck with me. Like Clockwork is a very memorable, very interesting villain, and for a design so simplistic, and when such a was a basic motive, like it's just for revenge. I'm surprised they managed to get so much mileage out of this character, especially with what they decided to do with the sequel. Now I'll be talking about that as I go through like Sly 2 and stuff like that, and how they progress Clockwork. But like unlike most video game franchises in which they come up with some excuse to like bring back the main bad guy and like give them like more of a role, and maybe they become a good guy, or maybe there's a situation in which like they can up the ante and do the same thing again. Clockwork stays dead in Sly 2, and that's actually part of the plot, and it actually works like really well. Like the way Clockwork is utilized in the sequel is a very unique, interesting storytelling technique that manages to pay respect to what the character was in the original. Like I remember being surprised playing Sly 2 for the first time and realizing just how how unique this angle was with what they went with. But yeah, the character is unique, memorable, and Sly actually does beat him. Sly actually does like move on with his life and like goes on to the next big thing. It's um it's a great game. I don't think there's any denying that this is probably one of my personal favorites on PS2. It's probably not the best game on the console by any stretch of the imagination, but for me personally, it's one I enjoy a lot. It reminds me a lot of Congo's Caper in that regard, in which there are better games like this, but very few that I enjoy more.